In Venice, 1831, adventurer, poet, and Count Leopoldo Cicognara writes his final book with the modest title, Memories Relating to the History of Copperplate Printing. There, he makes an incredible discovery, describing for the first time a deck of cards that had been concealed from the world for several centuries. Later, it will be named the Sola Busca Tarot deck. Cicognara determined the year of creation of this unique deck to be 1491, just 40 years after the Visconti Sforza Tarot. However, the deck was unlike any known before. Who created it? For what purposes? And why was it kept hidden from the world for almost half a millennium? Back in 1831, none of these questions could be answered, and the deck disappeared from view for almost another 100 years. In the early 20th century, the Sola Busca family had no heirs, and the cards passed to the Cipollone family. In 1907, the Cipollone family presented black and white photos of all 78 cards to the British Museum. This is where Arthur Edward Waite saw them. Later, the British mystic utilized the images he saw from the minor arcana in the creation of his own tarot deck. However, how Waite precisely interpreted the symbolism of the Sola Busca deck remains a significant question. His deck features many Christian symbols, and did he, for instance, see in the Three of Swords the Immaculate Heart of Mary, or did he grasp the true intentions of the original creators? The question of who painted the deck is still debated. However, the identity of the artist is not as crucial in this case. The true authors and commissioners of the deck were the Dukes. We will begin the story of the noble family from Ferrara a few years before the appearance of the Sola Busca deck, with Marquis Lionello d'Este. Why he inherited the title in 1441 is a separate mystery, as he was an illegitimate son. However, when he takes the helm of Ferrara, the city flourishes. He patronizes the arts, establishes a university, but has many peculiarities. The walls of Lionello's family castle are adorned with frescoes depicting scenes from ancient Roman history, reminiscent of the Sola Busca cards. You'll mind, what man doesn't think about ancient Rome several times a day? Ancient Rome was merely a cover for astrological and magical signs. Each day, Lionel dressed in the color corresponding to the planet currently exerting the greatest influence. After Lionel's death in 1450, the title inexplicably passed again to the illegitimate, this time to his natural brother, Borso. Borso outdid Lionel in extravagance, starting each day with the reading of his astrological forecast before planning his schedule. He even turned down an invitation from the Pope, citing the unfavorable positions of the planets. Furious, Pope Paul II accused Borso of heresy, but instead of an audience in the Vatican, Borso calmly went on a hunting trip. Little did the Pope know the hidden symbols contained in Borso d'Este's personal Bible. Finally, we have reached the true creator and commissioner of the mysterious deck, Ercole d'Este. He was the son of Borso and the most enigmatic figure in the entire family. From his contemporaries, he earned two nicknames, the North Wind and the Diamond. He also faced suspicions of practicing necromancy. The 15th century in Europe saw the flourishing of mysticism. During this time, medieval grimoires like the Sworn Book of Honorius and the Key of Solomon gained widespread recognition. In these books, detailed rituals are described, allowing one to summon the dead, spirits, and even demons, and to command them. It is precisely these texts that feature in the accusatory sentences of the Inquisition of that time. Therefore, an accusation of necromancy was more than serious, and it meant that such knowledge had to be hidden particularly carefully. Essentially, the Sola Busca deck serves as a dual code, concealing perilous knowledge. Let's examine a few major arcana as an example. On the second card, we see the consul of Rome, Lucius Postumius Albinus, who was sent to Gaul and suffered defeat in a battle against the Celts. According to Celtic tradition, Albinus's skull was emptied and covered in gold so that the victors could use it as a sacred vessel. On the altar, we observe the very skull that Lucius is gazing at, and it conceals a coded ritual of communication with the dead. The third card depicts a special gesture known as the Proskynesis. It represents a distinct form of gesture used to address gods from the otherworldly realm. In this case, the eyes are to be covered with the left hand. Alongside the gesture, there is another ingredient, herbs placed in a censer. On the 10th card, we again encounter the Proskynesis gesture. However, unlike the 3rd card, this gesture was used to express solemn reverence to celestial gods or a particular individual. The 17th card features an object from ancient Greek cults called the Xoanon. It symbolized the god Cronus, depicted with 2 wings. The praying figure also has 2 wings, but they are dragon-like. Both the wings and the diadem on his head signify his dedication. The 8th card presents Emperor Nero. According to the account of Pliny the Elder, nothing pleased Nero more than human sacrifices. On one hand, it is a historical fact, and on the other, it is a coded description of a gruesome ritual. The 9th card provides detailed instructions on how to communicate with the gods after making sacrifices. Georgios Gemistos Plethon described it: raise your face to the sky, kneel on both knees, raise your hands with palms upward and cry, O gods, be favorable. After uttering this invocation, worship the other gods with your left hand, using the same words. A quote from the medieval Byzantine philosopher and mystic appears not by chance. We see him on the 10 of Cups in the Minor Arcana. On the 21st card, we encounter another familiar king, Nebuchadnezzar. However, the card actually illustrates the invisible description of a resurrection ritual, a return to life through the gates of the sun. This is a direct reference to the Saturnalia, suggesting hidden rites within the cards. The 18th card directly confirms this. Pay attention to the red string on the head, marking a priest in the Roman Empire authorized to conduct cult rites. On the belt, an Ouroboros, a snake holding its tail in its mouth, symbolizes the goddess Rhea, wife of Cronus and mother of Zeus. The entire scene once again alludes to the Saturnalia. From the 1st to the 4th century in the Roman Empire, alongside Christianity, another religion was actively spreading: the cult of Mithras. Unlike Christianity, this was a religion embraced by legionaries and warriors. According to the myth, Mithras was born from a rock, holding a sword in his hand. The religion originated from Iran and has clear roots in Zoroastrianism but underwent significant changes, absorbing elements from Greek and Roman mythology. It was widely spread, with its primary center in Rome, and its underground temples have been discovered in North Africa and Britain. Although by the 15th century Christianity had completely defeated the cult of Mithras, it was not forgotten. For instance, the previously mentioned Georgios Gemistos Plethon explicitly advocated in his Book of Laws to abandon Christianity and return to the religion of the ancestors. The 7th major arcana of the Sola Busca deck subtly hints at the main event in the cult of Mithras. On the card, we see the Galatian king Diodorus, whose name literally translates as the Divine Bull. Diodorus was a loyal ally of the Romans and participated in the power struggle among Roman commanders that led to the fall of the Republic in 44 BC. At that moment, he unexpectedly switched sides while retaining his kingdom until his death. According to the cult, Mithras, born from the stone, kills the divine bull that sided with evil. This is the crucial event depicted in all Mithras cult temple catacombs. Furthermore, the throne's shape on which Diodorus sits strongly resembles the Phrygian cap traditionally depicted on Mithras. Even more reminiscent of such a Phrygian cap is the dragon-shaped hat we see on the 15th arcana. By the way, helmets worn by the Macedonian cavalry during the time of King Philip II of Macedon, also present in the Sola Busca deck, have a similar form, and we will return to them later. On the 13th arcana, we see Cato the Younger. He was a Stoic and an opponent of Julius Caesar. The card alludes to the legend recounting Cato's youth. Once he visited his friend, Alanista, the owner of a gladiator school, and expressed a desire to see a gladiator fight. Instead, his friend ordered the execution of one of his slaves, and the head was brought to Cato on a platter. However, this card also hints at the myth of the Medusa and Perseus, who killed her. Herodotus claimed that all Persians descended from Perseus, implying the connection to the Mithras cult. I have already mentioned the Dest family's fascination with astrology, but we haven't discussed the connection between astrology and the Sola Busca tarot yet. On the 4th major arcana, we see the Roman general Gaius Marius. Plutarch wrote that Marius promised to sacrifice his daughter Calpurnia if he won the battle. He fulfilled this promise. Later, Marius unleashed total terror in the country during the civil war with Sulla. It's not coincidental that there are so many red tones in Marius's attire. He clearly symbolizes the planet Mars. On the fifth arcana, another military leader, Gaius Lutatius Catullus, is depicted. Born a plebeian, his nickname, Catullus, means puppy. He is shown on the card with a wound on his leg that he received in a battle he initiated. In his hand, he holds medieval mechanical protoclocks, a mandatory attribute of Chronos Saturn. The wound itself indicates that he is lame, like Chronos or Saturn, and he symbolizes the respective planet. On the sixth arcana, Hermes Mercury is depicted in winged sandals, symbolizing the first of the planets in the solar system. In the cult of Mithras, astrology played a crucial role. Followers referred to the cult as the mystery of Mithras. Each follower occupied a specific level, and to reach it, they had to undergo trials blindfolded, such as jumping over a chasm or engaging in combat with invisible adversaries and overcoming them. In essence, it was a secret society with different levels of initiation into knowledge. There were a total of 7 levels of initiation. Those who passed the first level were called Corax, meaning crow. The symbol of this level was the caduceus staff, and the planet associated with it was Mercury. By the way, on the left shoulder of the Fool in the Sola Busca initial 0 card, we see a crow. The Fool himself obviously symbolizes the absence of any knowledge, a person before initiation into the mysteries. Those who passed the second level of the cult of Mithras were called nymphs. The symbol became the diadem, as we've seen on the 17th major arcana. The associated planet was Venus. After completing the third level of the cult of Mithras, the person earned the title of Miles, or soldier. The symbols were weapons and armor, and the associated planet was Mars. Those who reached the fourth level of the cult became Leo, and the symbol became the laurel wreath, with Jupiter as the associated planet. The fifth level was Perseus, symbolized by the Phrygian Cap, with the moon as the associated planet. The sixth level was Heliodromus, or solar runner, symbolized by a torch or whip, with the sun as the associated planet. The seventh and final level of the cult of Mithras was Pater, symbolized by a cloak or robe, with Saturn as the associated planet. Now, it's time to return to Sola Busca. On the 2 of coins, we see a man at the top wearing a laurel wreath and, at the bottom, a figure in a cloak resembling monastic attire. This represents someone who has reached the 4th and 7th levels, uniting Leo and Pater, Jupiter and Saturn. This card leads us to one of the strangest mysteries of the cult of Mithras, the deity known as Leontocephaline, with a lion's head and entwined by a serpent. In reality, this is a descriptive name coined by modern scholars, and the true name of this deity remains unknown. However, it is clear that it combines Jupiter the Thunderer and Saturn Kronos, playing a significant role in the cult. Yet another mystery is concealed within the court cards. And the central figure here is Alexander the Great, whom we see on the King of Swords card. In the Middle Ages, a popular legend emerged among the aristocracy, suggesting that he did not merely die but descended from the sky in a chariot pulled by a team of griffins, carrying him to the heavens. Thus, he was deified. In mythology, griffins are contradictory beings. These creatures unite heaven and earth, good and evil. They can act as protectors or as malicious, unrestrained monsters. The lion was traditionally considered the king of beasts, and the eagle the king of birds, so in the Middle Ages, the griffin was regarded as an especially powerful and majestic creature. In addition to Alexander the Great himself, on the cards, we see several figures directly associated with him. The King of Coins is the Macedonian King Philip, the father of Alexander the Great. As for Alexander's mother, we see her on 2 cards. The Queen of Cups is named Polyxena, which was the name of Alexander the Great's mother before her marriage. The Queen of Swords is Olympias, as she came to be called after her marriage. In the Knight of Swords image, we see the god Ammon, who according to legend was the real father of Alexander the Great, not King Philip. The Knight of Cups is the magician Nectanebo, who, along with Aristotle, was a teacher to Alexander the Great. The Knight of Wands is the god Apollo, at whose Delphic oracle the fate of Alexander was predicted long before his conquests. And the Queen of Wands is Pallas, that is, Athena Parthenos, whose statue was erected in memory of the renowned king after his death. That is, as we can see, the entire life of Alexander the Great is covered, from birth to death. Why him, you might ask? And here we need to talk about alchemy. There is a medieval text called Secretum Secretorum, in which an alleged secret correspondence between Aristotle and his student Alexander the Great is said to be preserved, discussing astrology, alchemy, and other mystical topics. Moreover, in antiquity, Alexander the Great was celebrated as the new sun, the ancient alchemical symbol of gold, the most perfect of metals, the privileged matter. We certainly remember that on the Sola Busca cards, Alexander the Great is surrounded by 4 griffins. In alchemy, the griffin symbolized the universal solvent. Another alchemical figure is the 16th arcanum, olive, illustrating the triumph of the sun, that is, the alchemical production of gold. In medieval treatises, the cockatrice is mentioned as a mandatory ingredient for such experiments. The cockatrice is one of the most dangerous mythological creatures, possessing a deadly gaze. In late medieval bestiaries, it was reiterated that the mongoose is the only animal immune to the cockatrice's gaze. The cockatrice itself dies instantly upon hearing the crowing of a rooster or seeing its reflection in a mirror. If you carefully examine all the cards of the coin suit, you can observe a clear sequence of metal processing, a metaphor for the alchemical transformation of lead into gold. One of the main mysteries is why the Sola Busca deck was kept hidden from people for almost 5 centuries. What secret society was behind this? We've already discussed the cult of Mithras, which in itself was a secret society, but there is another version. On the 7 of Swords and the 12th major arcana, we see the classical abbreviation commonly interpreted as the Senate and people of Rome. This leads us to an unexpected version. In 1468, in Rome, by the order of Pope Paul II, 12 academics from the Pomponius Laetus Academy were arrested during a carnival. They were suspected of conspiring against Pope Paul II and plotting an assassination attempt on him. The founder of the academy was at that moment in Venice, which saved him from arrest. Later, he traveled to Germany and then to Russia, returning only when the case had completely subsided. Under torture, the academics revealed that they had gathered in the catacombs and even renounced their Christian names, addressing each other in Latin. In the catacombs where the society convened, inscriptions from that time were later found on the walls. They were accused of republicanism and heresy. Heresy could not be proven, but the catacombs inevitably suggest the presence of the Mithraic cult, whose sanctuaries were located in underground caves. Whether the Duc d'Este was connected to the Pomponius Laetus Academy is now impossible to determine. However, such a version is quite plausible. In any case, no matter which secret society created this incredible deck, one thing is clear: it was conceived from the start as a secret code, and much is explained by the Latin motto, Traer Fatis, which means, fate guides me. We see this inscription 4 times, twice on the minor arcana and twice on the major arcana. I will remain silent here, as the Romans used to say, silentium est aurum.